I want to begin with an interview that really stopped me in my tracks because it's not every day that you hear a retired commanding general of the United States Army speak the way that General Mark Hertling spoke. It was a fascinating interview. And when a man like that chooses his words carefully, when he slows down, when he takes a moment, takes the time, and he lifts his eyebrows, just a little. If you watch him, he's a very moderated guy all the time, but he was particularly moderated on this interview when he says that what happened, he believes, in September on those boats in Venezuela in the waters there, that it was illegal, that it was immoral, that it is dangerous. You see the weight of his career behind him and a career behind it. And you see a man who has commanded soldiers in life and death situations. He even talks, in this interview about some of the situations that he's been in, a man who has taught the law of armed conflict and a man who understands not just what war is, but what war requires. Here's General Hertling.
Not a lawyer, but I will tell you that if a senior official urged someone else, a military person, to conduct such a strike, then we are morally bound to ask additional questions that any democracy should be asking. Were these unlawful orders? It appears they were. Were they issued or were they implied? We don't know that. That's part of an investigation. Did the service member feel pressured to act unlawfully? We don't know that either. Were there the attempts to suppress the supporting? Was additional guidance provided? These aren't political questions, Joe. These are constitutional ones, legal ones, and moral injury ones.
And you hear something there, and he said it appears that they were illegal. Did you hear that? He said something in there that this country is not used to hearing on national television. You hear a general say out loud that the Secretary of Defense, what he says, it appears, issued an unlawful order. Listen to it.
Soldiers or anyone who is asked to pull a trigger in this kind of situation not only does it illegally based on what they've been taught, but that also creates, and the reason we have these rules is to avoid moral injury for those individuals.
So let me tell you why that matters. And it matters a lot. He's speaking the truth here. He and Senator Mark Kelly, I believe, are speaking the truth, are the clearest voices in this moment that speak from just a sense of knowing, having been there. General Hertling is not a partisan pundit. He's not a blowtorch on social media. As I said, he's a very moderated man. He's a grown-up. He's an adult. He's one of the most respected voices on military ethics in America. And when he was asked about the Washington Post reporting that Pete Hegseth ordered the U.S. force to kill everybody on a civilian vessel, including survivors clinging to wreckage, he didn't hesitate. He said, if you want to say the quiet part out loud, he just said it out loud, that it was an illegal order, and it looks like it was. He said that every service member is trained to refuse illegal orders. Listen.
The reason we have these rules is to avoid moral injury for those individuals. And doing any of this, along with some of the other things that we have watched happen, the Secretary of Defense disparaging legal oversight, sidelining JAG officers, eliminating the press to report on such actions, or treat accountability for such actions as the enemy. They do more than risk unlawful actions. They weaken the moral foundation that makes our military so great.
And that's what's happening right now. In this interview, he also hearkened back to all of those senior military officials and generals and such being summoned to Washington, to the Pentagon, and then being told that they, had to change what they were doing because I guess the Hegseth rule, the Trump rule, they want them to behave a certain way, which may be unconstitutional, which would possibly go against the military code of justice. General Hertling said that there's no ambiguity here, that there is no interpretation gap, that there is no gray zone, that it is illegal. And he's saying this is where the moral fabric of the United States military was being stressed and tattered and torn because of the leadership of Pete Hegseth. So Pete Hegseth is not only responsible, Donald Trump is responsible even more so because he put someone who's unqualified in this position. And General Hertling said something that was even more powerful. He explained why this was happening, why it is illegal, and why this is a bridge too far. He said the laws of war are not academic theories here. They are not niceties, that they exist because war without rules becomes autocracy. That war without rules becomes chaos. Wars without rules become murder. And then he said something that stuck with me long after the interview ended. And he said that if America starts giving no quarter orders, if America starts killing survivors in the water, if America starts violating the rules that protect civilians and wounded combatants, then every American service member becomes less safe. Because once we ignore the Geneva Conventions, other nations feel free to ignore them too. Here it is.
Because a military that abandons abiding by these kinds of laws, Geneva Conventions, law of land warfare, they cease to be American. And a military that fails to investigate serious allegations of this kind of conflicts invites tragedy at the strategic, the moral, and the human domain.
So that's not a cable news soundbite right there. That is a warning from someone who has seen what happens when guardrails break. And we're at a guardrail breaking moment. This is a glass breaking moment. I can't tell you how serious this is. Everyone should be paying attention to this. This is not a sky is falling. It's not hyperbolic. This is not Trump derangement syndrome. This is very, very dangerous territory. Because if you look at the Trump administration, is in charge of the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch, okay? And the military is one of the things that's holding us together right now as a democracy and as a country. And so in this moment, General Hertling is speaking like a man who who's reached the point really where silence would be dishonorable, he believes, where silence is not an option, and you can hear it, you can feel it. There is no showmanship in the way he's acting, in his voice. There's no drama. He's calm, and that calm made it even more serious. He said, look, every officer knows this. Every enlisted soldier knows this. From day one, you are taught that you do not kill people who cannot fight back. It's as simple as that. And you are taught what the 6 Democrats did and said last week or a week or so ago, that you don't carry out orders that violate the laws of war. You refuse them. And then he said something even more alarming, I believe. He said that if the reporting is accurate, the order did not come from a rogue commander. It came from the top, from Pete Hegseth, who is the Secretary of Defense. And the president cannot use the excuse that he didn't know about it, or that he just can't take Pete Hegseth's word for it, that, well, Pete said he didn't do it, so I believe he didn't do it, and therefore he didn't do it, and that's the end of that. It doesn't work that way. And Hertling explains. Here it is.
The one other point I'd make is last night I saw the president say, oh, Pete told me it was okay, that he didn't conduct a second strike. Well, that's easily disprovable, because if there were any weapons used against these boats, they were filmed. They have to be filmed because it's a laser paint of the ship. We had the first part of the film. Was there a second part where we can see exactly what happened? There's pretty clear evidence in all this.
So I want you to think about that. What he's saying, that there's pretty clear evidence of this. The whole excuse, the one excuse that Donald Trump is very good at, and he uses every single time, besides I just need more time, just give me 2 weeks or whatever, and then hoping that people forget about it, is that he didn't know anything about it. He's never met the people involved. He has no idea of the situation. No one has ever briefed him on it. No knowledge, nothing. Think about that. Because Donald Trump, number one, the buck stops with him. He is the commander in chief. Donald Trump has been saying that he wants to, that he knew in the past, he said that he's been involved in these orders and that he supports what's happening in Venezuela in the waters, because he's been criticized heavily for it, not only by people inside the United States politically, but also from some of our closest allies. Look at what's happening with the UK. And they're saying, look, we're no longer going to share intelligence information with you because we believe that this goes against what we believe in. So it's been problematic, but he's saying he knows and he supports it. So he cannot just go along with this. That makes Donald Trump, if you listen to what Hertling says, that there's film and all of this, there's intelligence, that makes him complicit in the lie, a possible cover-up, at the very least, a glossy cover-up of the truth here, which in that case, this cover-up is at least as dangerous as the crime. It's often said that the cover-up is worse than the crime. These two, I believe, share equal footing here. So Hegseth's continued leadership puts the military's legitimacy at risk. We should not dismiss that. That should not be minimized. So I believe that the question is unavoidable. Should Pete Hegseth stay or should he go? I think it's unavoidable. If we are really, really, really honest about this, if we're listening to the people who actually know what war is and what war requires, if we are listening to the generals who once carried these responsibilities on their shoulders, then the answer is already in the room, in the situation room, where Pete Hegseth should not be. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a show. We're live every weekday at 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Time with new clips dropping at 2 p. and 8 p. And if you want even more Don Lemon Show content, join the Lemon community. Members get exclusive posts, behind-the-scenes videos, and live chats just for you. So hit the join button or visit our channel page to sign up. Thanks again for all your love and your support, and I'll see you next time.